the cytoskeleton, not only does it give structure to the cells, it allows them to maintain their shape, but it also acts as a transport pathway for materials. These microtubules that make up the cytoskeleton can form, and it almost acts like a zip line. You attach a material to it, it gets carried along this tubule from one side of the cell to the next, or from one location to another. Now, there are several different subunits involved in making these the cytoskeleton, and in fact the actin subunit is one that is used for transport. There is a motor kind of structure that's essentially a small piece of myosin, which is in muscle, which interacts with the actin and carries things along. Anyway, we have microfilaments, intermediate filaments, microtubules. We don't really need to know all of these. Just understand that the cytoskeleton is a structural and transport mechanism for cells. Now, another cytoplasmic organelle is the centriole. These are short, rod-shaped bodies. They're made of little microtubules, and they direct the formation of the mitotic spindle during cell division. Now, we all started out as a single cell. That cell divided into two, that cell divided into four, so forth, until we ended up with the trillions of cells that make up our bodies. And these microtubules are necessary for that process to occur. We have a discussion about mitosis in a separate presentation, and we'll talk a little bit more about that activity at that time. These are, after our cells have matured, after a certain age, often at birth in fact, we don't make any more of certain types of cells. This structure may be involved in the development of other structures on some of our body cells, specifically cilia, which are in some of our epithelial tissues, which help us move things along. Now, cells may have cellular projections. We talked a little bit about this when we were talking about the cell membrane. It's not found in all cells, but some cells do have cilia, which are long thread-like things that have a wafting motion which can move materials across the cell surface. They are located, for instance, in the respiratory system, and it helps move mucus. Basically, as we breathe in and out, materials stick to the mucus, and then the cilia bring the mucus up into our throat, where we swallow it. It goes into our stomach, and the acids in the stomach destroy whatever microorganisms are there. Now, this is a process we're not even aware of, unless maybe you're a smoker. When you're a smoker, you actually anesthetize the cilia so that they can't move the mucus. And so when you go to sleep at night, the cilia become unanesthetized and move the mucus up into your throat. So you'll often wake up, if you're a heavy smoker, with a big gob of mucus kind of in your throat. Another projection is a flagella. These propel cells. So both cilia and flagella are involved in moving things, but cilia move things across the cells. The cells don't move. Flagella actually move the cell. And there's only one cell type in the human body that has flagella, and that is the sperm. Now, the spirochete is a bacterial organism that looks very much like this flagella, and as we had the endosymbiotic theory associated with mitochondria, there's a similar theory associated with spirochetes, in that at some point this microorganism attached to cells and actually enabled them to move about, and that gave a certain advantage rather than a cell that did not move and just kind of had to be plopped in the general vicinity. Okay, this video is actually located on the right-hand side of this soft chalk presentation, so there are links to that over to your right. Now, we've been talking about cells. There is a huge diversity of cells. There's 4 basic cell types we have, or tissue types, that have similar characteristics. So we have connective tissues, and there's a whole bunch of connective tissues, but they all have certain characteristics that are the same. That is, there's a little space between them. There's a matrix, so forth. Muscle. We have 3 different types of muscle, but they all have the ability to contract and so forth. So there's actually about 200 different cell types. Now, an example here, fibroblasts. These build fibers which hold things together. We have erythrocytes, which are red blood cells that used to be cellular, but all of the organelles have been ejected from them, so now they are just kind of sacks of chemicals. We have epithelial cells, and when we, a little bit later on, we will talk about the epithelium and the different types. We'll also look at some of those in lab, but that group as a protective characteristic, and they all have a surface that is exposed. They line every surface. Our skin, for instance, is a form of epithelium. As I said before, we have muscle cells and smooth muscle. We have skeletal muscle. We have cardiac muscle. So we're just talking about these so that you understand this big variety of cell types. In lab, of the 200 that are out there, we probably look at 30 different cells. Included in that, by the way, is a fat cell, which is considered a connective tissue, which has a big inclusion body that holds lipids. We have cells that fight disease, and these are wandering cells that can actually clean up. They have loads of lysosomes. So as we talked before, we have all of these different organelles, but we're going to have them in different proportions depending on what it is that the cell does. We have nerve cells, and these nerve cells have lots of long processes, and these processes, their shape is maintained by that cytoskeleton. And the last, we talked about some of the materials. Some of the cells have flagellum, and this is our sperm cell, and it is actually the smallest cell in the human body. The largest cell in the human body actually is the egg. So that really concludes our discussion about the organelles of the cell. Gives you an idea of cell diversity. There is another presentation in this unit about tissues, and that's going to go into more detail about the specific activities of each of the tissue types and give you examples of each. So, thank you very much.